Welcome back to Dial M for Miami, Season 1, Cracks in the Foundation, the Sergio Pino story, a true crime podcast produced by Heard at Media and hosted by me, Anna Quincoces. Episode 5, Succession, Sorting Through the Rubble. When someone's life ends as tragically and violently as Sergio Pino's did, the fallout is never straightforward. His suicide on July 16, 2024, during an FBI raid, left behind not just grief, but chaos. His once seemingly invincible empire, Century Home Builders, now stands at the heart of a fierce battle. A battle between his estranged wife, Tatiana, who was by his side for 32 years, and his brother, Carlos, who Sergio had always trusted and relied on for business. But in Sergio's final days, a deep rift had formed, and the stage for a brutal legal war over his legacy was set. Today, we delve into the high-stakes clash, one rooted not just in business, but in personal betrayals, family fractures, and desperate attempts at control.
There's now a probate battle over his will, what she says is invalid because of Sergio Pino's, quote, insane delusion.
Sergio Pino's delusion, her lawyers say, was his allegedly attempting and then denying the murder-for-hire plot that has led to the arrest of 9 co-conspirators. Today, a judge blocked Sergio Pino's brother from taking over his affairs, at least for now, giving Tatiana's attorneys time to investigate further.
Sergio Pino built Century Home Builders from the ground up. It was his life's work, and it made him a power player in Miami's development scene. But in his final will, signed just months before his death, Sergio made a shocking move. He disinherited his wife, Tatiana, and handed over control of Century Home Builders to his brother, Carlos. The will's revision came amid Sergio's spiraling behavior, marked by erratic decisions and increasingly violent actions against Tatiana, whom he had once vowed to love and protect. Tatiana, blindsided by this turn of events, was quick to act. She claims that she and Sergio held Century Home Builders and its assets as tenants by the entirety. Holding a business as tenants by the entireties is a form of ownership available only to married couples. It treats the spouses as a single legal entity, meaning both have equal and undivided ownership of the business. This type of ownership provides certain protections, like shielding the business from the creditors of just one spouse. In other words, creditors can't go after the business to satisfy debts unless both spouses are responsible for the debt. If one spouse should die, the other automatically becomes the sole owner of the business without the need for probate. Tatiana and her attorneys are relying heavily on this legal doctrine, claiming that she should inherit full ownership of Century Home Builders. In her view, the will Sergio signed near the end of his life is not valid. However, Carlos Pino sees things a little differently. According to him, Tatiana's entitled to only half of the company at best, and he has moved to position himself as the rightful heir to his brother's business.
Tatiana is not a beneficiary of the estate, but that doesn't matter when it comes to assets they held together, says probate attorney Christopher Winter.
If they own property jointly, as tenants by the entireties, as husband and wife, then what would happen is the wife would automatically be entitled to all of the assets that were owned in that fashion.
In the wake of Sergio's death, Tatiana made a bold and defiant move. She arrived at Century Home Builders headquarters. She took control and declared herself president. It was a scene that left many employees stunned. She changed the locks, removed Sergio's name and photograph from the company's website, and replaced them with her own. Tatiana's actions were swift and decisive, perhaps a signal that she had no intention of allowing her husband's last will to strip her of her claim to the business she claims they built together. But her sudden assumption of power did come at a cost. Many high-level employees, some of whom had been loyal to Sergio for decades, resigned in protest. Their loyalty was not just to Pino, but to his vision for the company. They questioned whether Tatiana, who had not been involved in the day-to-day operations, was fit to lead. Further adding to the tension was Sergio's suicide note, which named Pedro Hernandez, known as Pedrito, as the person he trusted to take over the company's operation. In the note, Sergio urged his employees to support Pedrito. Pedro had been with Century Home Builders for many, many years, and he was considered Sergio's right-hand man. His supporters were equally vocal about their dissatisfaction with Tatiana's leadership, deepening the divide within the company.
This guy had tried to destroy the business. It would be the worst and last person this court respect we should ever appoint. He is conflicted beyond belief because of the fraudulent transfers from his brother. We don't know if he was involved in the efforts of his brother that had his wife killed.
The struggle for control isn't just about the business. It's about loyalty. It's about betrayal. And of course, it's about power. But it's also about something more insidious, the manipulation and desperation that surrounded Sergio's final days. Tatiana's legal team has launched a challenge to the will, arguing that Sergio was not of sound mind when he made the changes that disinherited her. They point to the months leading up to his death, months filled with increasingly erratic and dangerous behavior. The murder-for-hire plot against Tatiana, allegedly orchestrated by Sergio himself, is one of the most disturbing elements of this case. According to the FBI, Sergio had gone to great lengths to end his wife's life, from poisoning her with fentanyl to hiring hitmen to make her death look like a heart attack. Sergio's actions suggest a man who was unraveling. This, Tatiana's legal team argues, proves that Sergio was not in control of his faculties when he revised his will. FBI records and investigations will play a crucial role in this case as Tatiana's lawyers seek to invalidate the will on the grounds of Sergio's mental instability.
One of the arguments they raise is that it was created under a delusion.
An insane delusion, a diseased condition of mind, one that drove him, they argue, to hire hitmen to kill his wife and then kill himself when that failed. Winter, not involved in the case, says that might be a stretch.
An insane delusion is a very unusual type of lack of capacity. And at least in my view, it probably wouldn't apply in this case.
Throughout this entire ordeal, Tatiana has leaned heavily on her faith. She has openly shared that her belief in God has been her guiding force. It has given her the strength to endure the betrayals and the violence and the fear that has surrounded her for years. It was her faith that ultimately led her to file for divorce from Sergio after learning of his infidelity. Her decision to finally separate came not just from a place of survival, but from a deep belief that she needed to protect herself and her family.
And I'm speaking from that experience. And that really just breaks your heart. But God is close to the brokenhearted, it says in the Bible. I turned to friends, I turned to family, and ultimately, God was the one who just kind of mended my heart. He mended my wounds. And there's going to be suffering, and I've gone through not only relationship suffering, but I've gone through physical suffering. And again, Jesus was there. And he's the one who kind of just held me in his arms through that physical suffering.
Tatiana's legal battle is further complicated by her sister, Aurora Linares, who has now filed a $30 million lawsuit against Sergio's estate, both for compensatory and punitive damages. Aurora is seeking the damages for the emotional distress caused by the 2 arson attacks, which she believes were part of Sergio's attempts to intimidate Tatiana. In July 2022, surveillance cameras captured a person setting fire to Aurora's vehicles outside her home. She has no doubts that Sergio was behind the attacks. For Aurora, the lawsuit is about more than just money. It's about holding Sergio accountable for the fear and trauma that his actions caused her family. As the legal proceedings continue, Tatiana remains resolute. Her fight for control of Century Home Builders isn't just about business, it's about her future and the future of her daughters. She is determined to ensure that Sergio's final act of betrayal does not strip her of the legacy that they built together. But the battle for Century Home Builders is far from over. Inside the company, the atmosphere is tense. Employees are divided, with many still loyal to Pedrito, who was specifically named in Sergio's suicide note. These employees see Pedrito as the rightful leader, a man who understands the business and was by Sergio's side through the years of building Century Home Builders. On the other hand, Tatiana's supporters believe that she has every right to take the reins and steer the company into its next chapter. The divisions run deep, and the future of Century Home Builders remains uncertain as these legal battles continue to play out. In the probate courts, Tatiana's claim will be tested. Her lawyers must prove that Sergio was not of sound mind when he signed the will, and that the changes made in those final months should be overturned. At stake is more than just a business. It's the future of a family, of a company, and a legacy that once seemed unshakable. As the dust begins to settle from Sergio Pino's final dramatic act, it's clear that the ripple effects are far from over. Tatiana, once locked in a toxic marriage filled with manipulation and fear, now stands at a crossroads. She has claimed her place at the head of Century Home Builders, but the path ahead is still unclear. Will she succeed in keeping the company afloat while fending off challenges from Carlos, Pedrito, and the others who question her authority? The legal fight over Sergio's estate continues, and with it, the very future of Century Home Builders hangs in the balance. Tatiana, now armed with both faith and resilience, faces what could be the defining battle of her life, not just for her survival, but for the survival of the company she helped build. In the coming months, we will see more of these legal battles unfold in probate court, where the stakes remain sky high. With millions and millions of dollars on the line, as well as the control of one of Miami's most powerful development firms, the fight over Sergio's empire will continue to dominate the headlines. For now, Tatiana's faith and determination have kept her moving forward. Her story of survival against all odds is not over. And as we follow the ongoing fight for control, one thing seems certain: Tatiana has no intentions of being silenced, and her resilience seems to be the superpower that will define her legacy. Since the recording of this episode, new revelations have surfaced that cast an even darker shadow over the tragic saga of Sergio Pino. The Miami Herald obtained a critical FBI recording after filing a motion to intervene in the case. This recording, played in court in August, has now been made available to the public for the very first time. It offers a haunting look inside the conspiracy that Pino allegedly orchestrated. In the nearly half-hour conversation, Fausto Villar, one of the men hired by Pino, discussed his deep concern over the federal investigation closing in on the murder for hire plot.
When this gets over and done with, know this, we're all good. You know what I'm saying? Everything's gonna be good.
That is one of the men accused in the Sergio Pino murder for hire plot, part of a call with a co-conspirator discussing how to cover their tracks from the FBI. And according to prosecutors, one of them not knowing the FBI was recording the call.
Though Villar never explicitly named Pino, he alluded to the developer's desperation as the FBI arrests began.
The call came as the FBI was closing in on prominent developer Sergio Pino one day before he killed himself, as a SWAT team was ready to arrest him in his Coral Gables mansion.
Villar pressured his associates, Avery Bivens, to cover their tracks by deleting WhatsApp messages and social media accounts. At the time, Villar was unaware that Bivens had already been cooperating with the FBI.
You should erase your gram. Erase the gram. I can't even get into my right now.
That's because the feds already had Bivens' phone, as 2 members of his crew were already in custody. Villar appears worried Bivens could be next.
We need a plan where, let's say, God forbid, they knock on your door one day, or like whatever the case, someone's got to let me know through here, hey, like a code or something, yo.
Bivens' cooperation proved pivotal, marking a turning point in the investigation into Pino's recruitment of 2 crews to kill his estranged wife, Tatiana. The FBI recorded Villar urging Bivens to frame an armed assault on Tatiana as a botched robbery, warning that a conspiracy charge could easily connect the dots back to Pino. Villar's paranoia was palpable as he told Bivens he would be going dark, hoping to evade detection.
Everything has to clear. Smoke has to clear. So with what you got, try to fend off.
Too late for that. It was July 15th, and what Villar did not know was Bivens was already working with the FBI to build its case.
As we now know, within 24 hours of that call, the FBI raided Pino's estates, and before arresting him, he took his own life. Villar remains in custody pending a new trial in November. This explosive new evidence further solidifies the extent of Pino's desperation and his calculated efforts to eliminate his wife.
Unnamed, but prosecutors said referred to in the call, was Sergio Pino, who Bivens later told the feds Fausto told him wanted Tatiana dead because she would not accept a $20 million settlement to end their marriage.
Despite his death by suicide, the case continues to unravel, with more arrests and courtroom battles ahead. This concludes episode 5 of Cracks in the Foundation, the Sergio Pino story. While this chapter of Tatiana and Sergio's tragic journey may be coming to a close, this story is far from over. We'll continue to follow the legal battles and the future of Century Home Builders. Stay tuned as we follow these developments and what they mean for Tatiana, her family, and the ultimate fight for justice. This has been Dial M for Miami, Season 1, Cracks in the Foundation, the Sergio Pino story. Thank you for joining me. I'm Ana Quincoces. I'd like my audience to be aware that the content of this podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The opinions expressed by the host and guests are solely their own and do not reflect the opinions of any organizations or individuals referenced. All individuals mentioned in this podcast are considered innocent until proven guilty. While we make every effort to ensure the accuracy of the information presented, we cannot guarantee that all details are accurate or up to date. Any errors or omissions are unintentional. This podcast does not intend to defame or harm the reputation of any individual, and any statements made should be interpreted in the context of public commentary and storytelling.
A Huda Media Production.